Hi, everybody, and welcome back. Today's guest is Cassidyy Atkins. Cassidyy is an entrepreneur, has written a wonderful cookbook, and is a passionate home cook and a big fan of cooking and eating real food. In 2019, she started to focus on cooking to unlock her optimal health. She believes that cooking and health can't be separated, and I totally agree with that statement. In this video, we're going to be talking about Cassidy's backstory, how she got into cooking, her amazing, super organized mum, who was such an influence to her, and how she takes her passions forward into helping other people to find their optimal health through food. Cassidyy has a podcast, a blog. She's written a book about real food recipes, which I got a preview of, and I can tell you it is incredible, full of the most delicious recipes that feature real food we can find in a supermarket or a local farmer's market. I also really like that Cassidyy has included an additional section at the back, which covers a comprehensive look at kitchen guides. It's a proper how-to about so many different areas of cooking. So for instance, if you were going to be cooking a steak and suddenly you might think, oh, how many minutes for a medium rare, or how to cook the perfect piece of chicken, or how to tell your sirloin from your New York strip, and so much more. It's a wonderful surprise to find at the back of the book. I really enjoyed reading it, and I would encourage anybody to get their own copy. It is sure to become a family favourite. So today we're going to be chatting about real food and seed oils, two topics which are very close to my heart. Cassidyy, I know that was a long, really long introduction. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining me here today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to jump right in. I feel like we're already fast friends. Like we've known each other
We
for a
are.
long time. So I can't wait to just chat about this because you're right. It's such simple, stuff, cooking with real food. It sounds so easy. Why should we care about cooking? But truly, it is the key to optimal health. It is the key to, getting off those pills or getting, into the jeans you want, whatever. Like everyone has their own health goals in this season. And the way to get there, that first best step is always cooking with real food. And so I'm so excited to get in. We can go anywhere you want to go.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's start with you. Let's start with your backstory. So tell me about growing up, about what an influence your mum was on you with, really getting you into home cooking.
Yeah, definitely. So my mom, it's so funny. If you were to ask her, she's like, I'm not really that good of a cook. She of course she would probably say she is, but she would admit that she doesn't even really like cooking. It's funny because she's actually a baker, and that's kind of the perfect example of me and my mom. It's like pretty close, but totally different, right? Baking is so different than cooking, and so I think that's kind of a funny part of our little story. But she's also really entrepreneurial because she was a baker and she would sell her, goods and sweets and all that kind of stuff to different people
Oh.
locally. And, I remember always around Christmas, we would have this whole day. We would just go out and deliver goodies, whether it be church friends or old family friends or family, extended family. Like our car was just stuffed with these goodie bags and we would deliver them all day, all over town. And it was all made of homemade goods. And so always in my life growing up, it was just so obvious, like how you can impact and love and serve people with food and with cooking and baking, of course. And so I remember my mom was just always really intentional about teaching us practical things. I was homeschooled as well. And so not just had great education from the home, with school and stuff like that, but really the practical life skills that you actually need. And I remember being even in high school and being a teenager, and I was teaching my friends how to cook. I'd be like, "What? Like you don't know how to make anything?" I remember even at in my teenage years being surrounded with kids who didn't even know how to feed themselves. And so there's a really big problem, at least in America, where I'm from, where I saw that cooking is almost like getting like phased out. It's a lost art in a way. And so I've always just been really naturally like interested in cooking, good at cooking. I enjoy to cook, so it was never really a problem. My mom used to have me and my sister plan a meal every week when we got old enough. Like we would go out to the grocery store and we'd get all the ingredients and we'd come home and cook. And, my dad would give me feedback, you know what I mean? And, all kinds of stuff. And so it was always a lot of fun. Like I never felt like it was a chore. And I was so surprised that other people do feel like it's a chore. I'm like, what? You don't get to have fun in the kitchen. It's almost like arts and crafts. It's like art. It's like active meditation, or I don't know what you want to call it, but there's something really beautiful and fun that can happen in the kitchen and with cooking specifically. And so I remember it never just being a thing. I just was natural at it. And so I've never been to culinary school or a formal sort of like cooking education. It's always just been something natural. And I married my husband in 2018, and we both just fell in love with cooking together as well, because my husband has an amazing palate. He is like, guess the secret ingredient and he nails it every time, right? Like he can guess exactly what's in a certain sauce, or he can tell you like the perfect missing thing. You'll be out at a restaurant and he's like, what would be good with this, and then he says the exact ingredient that would take it to the next level, right? And so he has a really amazing palate. And so I almost was able to like reverse engineer his palate in a way. So what he thought would be good or what he thought could work, I could actually bring it to life in the kitchen. And so when we got married, we went on our honeymoon and we really got exposed to some incredible real food cooking, is what I would say is like, farm fresh, all natural, however you want to categorize it. Because where we stayed at on our honeymoon, they had chickens on the property. And so all the eggs were fresh every morning that we had. The cheese was fresh from the cows on property as well. All the veggies were grown on property. And it was just this really beautiful experience. The finest cut of lamb, I'd ever had, amazing wild caught sea bass, and all of these just amazing animal proteins as well. And so we would have these three-course meals the whole time we were at the honeymoon. It was every single meal had three courses to it, and we were like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. But we never felt bad. Of course, we were so full, we were going crazy on some of those foods, but we never felt bad. And we realized through our own research and our journey that we were like, whoa, these not just are these like the best foods we've ever had, these are the best possible foods on the planet that we could eat, right? These are actually good for us. And so realizing that we can get healthier with our favorite foods, like you almost use our love of cooking in the kitchen like as a superpower in a way, like coming together with this palette and then my cooking skills and being like, what can we really create here? Because we can basically make our own medicine. We can make our own anything. Like food is medicine. It's like when you realize the critical role and how amazing you feel when you do start eating real food, it's just so undeniable. And so when we really started cooking, it's funny, what in the daytime, right? I gotta say my real job, but we actually own a podcast company. And so we help podcasters edit their podcast and get their shows out there. And so we had a podcaster, his name is Zane Griggs, and he's a health expert. He's a longevity coach. I always say, I'm not a doctor or anything, but I learned from really, really amazing people. And he has been in the health and wellness industry for, over 25 years. He's got incredible amounts of accolades, written, best-selling books and all of that. And so he would actually talk on his podcast all about real food nutrition and animal-based protein. And we were learning so much from him, and we were already going on our own little health journey and learning how to cook. And I would say that me and my husband were really trying to do all the right things. Like we were, trying to cook at home, and we were, buying the healthy options with things. But really, we didn't understand how a lot of the marketing language got into some of the foods, and how some of the even health foods really aren't that healthy. And so when we started to learn from Zane Griggs on his podcast, we were like, whoa, our favorite dishes, some of the favorite things we've ever had, are actually the best things for us, right? It's so we kind of went down this health food rabbit hole and learned so much from him. And what he really exposed us to was how dangerous the seed oils are specifically. And I know we're going to get into that
Yeah.
a little bit later, but that's kind of the short story of how we started to do this. Because after we realized, how important, real food is, and even coming from people that knew how to cook and were doing the healthy things, we were missing so much. Um, and we realized how simple it is. It's like health is actually very, very simple. And so that's why we started Cook with Real Food, is almost to use our media and marketing powers for good and get this message out there, and document really what we've learned, because not just cooking is becoming a lost art, but people's health is going
So
downhill every
true.
single day. So it's almost this, it came to this point of like, how could we not try to put out this cookbook? How could we not try to document these skills? How could we not jump on podcasts like this and talk to people, so I know there's a couple different ways we can go with that, but that's really the short version of how we
Yeah.
got here.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And I love the fact that you talk about you maybe in the past have thought that you have known what real food was, or what how it felt to be to eat healthily. But once you actually discovered how incredible you can feel simply by eating real food. And I think this is what so many people are missing, for exactly as you explained, that marketing hype. I think so many, and I had done the same thing, years ago before I started going low carb and keto, which was about sort of 13 or 14 years ago now. But I would do exactly the same thing. I'd walk into a supermarket and I would honestly just assume that everything in there must have been okay for me, because otherwise, well, trading standards wouldn't allow these
Right.
things to be sold, or so you just assume, and you just fall for the marketing hype that is written on the front of a packet that might say, oh, healthy, or good for weight loss, good for heart health, and it's not the case. So it's really all about understanding what real food is, and perhaps you can talk a little bit on that and just explain to people, what is real food?
Yeah, absolutely. So living food, this is a really interesting concept, because real food, in my opinion, it sounds funny, but it's like just anything that's not fake. And so you almost have to identify what is living food, what is dead food, what is real food, and what is fake food. It's a big it feels like a big conversation, but it's really not. In the cookbook, I actually have a list of what I would qualify as real food. It's meats, fruits, veggies, of course, all of those kind of traditional things. But just remembering, like, life creates life. And so if you want to bring your body to life, how can you eat foods that were living maybe a second ago, maybe a little bit ago, right? But the last stage it was in, it was somehow alive, whether that be the actual animal, that sounds morbid, but that's the reality. And so the animal side of stuff, I'm very passionate about animal-based protein specifically, high protein diet. I know you do keto. And so that's, a big staple for you as well. And so
Yeah.
that protein specifically, I think a lot of people are missing. And so I do, want to highlight the most real food, I think, is like animal-based protein. I think it's the most nutrient dense, and eggs, of course. And eggs are the most nutrient dense, bioavailable powerhouse food you can put in your body. And so, not to go by order of significance or anything, but I do think it's worth highlighting how important protein is, because so many people are starving themselves on a high carb diet and a low nutritional diet.
Yes.
And so they might be alive, but they are actively starving themselves and dying. And so always remember life creates life. And so, your herbs were once living, your carrot was once living, your, some food, like a bell pepper might even be living when you eat it. You could just pick it right off the vine and get it. And so this straight, back to source cooking model is what I call it. And so I remember, one time I was praying, and you might not be spiritual, but I believe in the Lord. And so I was praying one time, and I just remember the Lord asking me if I wanted you to cook anywhere in the world, how would you do it? And it was such an intriguing question because I was like, well, I don't know, because it made me realize, well, maybe I couldn't get that, you know, special barbecue sauce in Asia. Or what if I couldn't get my favorite, seasoning packet that goes in that soup in Kuwait or wherever, right? Like I really tried to take the question literally. And I was like, well, if I were to make food anywhere in the world, I would probably have to figure out how to make a garden. I'd probably have to get a cow somehow, right? And so I started to think really differently because I realized, I might not be able to get the items at the store. And so taking the one step further, kind of from the where the food comes from, that source is like, did it come from the earth? Did it come from, an animal, a living thing? How is it back to the original eating model of humans? Because the way that we eat right now is so different than even just 100 years ago, even just 50 years ago. If I were to talk to my great great grandparents about, what they ate every day versus what I ate every day now, it would be pretty similar, right? Sweet potatoes, steak, all these hearty good foods. But a few years ago, they would have been like, what are you talking about? What are you eating? Like this is not real food. And so a good example of this is, of course, like candy, like a Sour Patch Kid or something like that. All of that ingredients in there, it was never alive. It's all fake. It's all chemicals. It's all, they could say like, oh, well, sugar is real. Like someone might, kind of rebut that point of like, well, sugar is real, but even the sugar they use is fake. It's the fake version of sugar. And so realizing that these synthetically derived packaged items, they were never ingredients to begin with, right? Ingredients are real food. It was actually hard in some ways for me to even write my cookbook because I felt like I didn't have a lot of recipes when I started eating real food because uh a chicken breast and a good veg and then maybe some fruit, that's not really a recipe. That's assembling real ingredients, right? And so we almost have to get back to the original meaning of some of these words. And so qualifying, real and fake, you also have to qualify what's living and dead. And so,
When we're getting down to it, all we really need is simply simple, real food. And I
absolutely.
love the what you said about fake food, because I do think that all of this begins with a change of mindset. So if people don't have a change of mindset, if it's all about going into the shop or the supermarket or even into the farmer's market and asking yourself, as you say, where has this come from? Where did this start out as? Did it start out as, something that was eating grass, or has it just been manufactured in a factory somewhere? So, how do you explain to people how they can tell the difference between maybe, what is a fake food and what is a real food?
Yeah,
You think?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think that when people kind of see through this marketing spell, it's a lot easier because I think that there's this natural human intuition that you realize like, oh, this makes so much more sense, when you kind of realize because I think deep down everybody knows that processed food is bad for you, especially if you're watching this channel. You're already moving towards that right direction.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people get wrapped up on the quality and then they're like, oh, well, I just don't know what to do, so I'm just going to settle for this. But once you've graduated to that point in your mind of like, I'm going to make better choices and I'm going to inform myself and not just assume what's being sold is good for me. Because you'll remember, I don't know if it was like this in England, but at least in America, I remember the word junk food, right? Was really popular growing up. Like, oh, that's just junk food, or like
Mm,
you've eaten too much junk food, or don't eat junk food, right?
mm,
Or
mm.
anything like that. And now that's almost like it's a never heard phrase anymore. Seriously,
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
never heard. And so
Mm,
just having that one definition coming back of like, this is junk food, right? This is
mm,
real food.
mm,
Because if you and I
mm.
were to get together with someone and be like, which one's better for you? And hold up a Dorito and a sweet potato, everyone in the room will say the sweet
Yeah.
potato, right?
Yeah.
And so just having that level of critical thinking in your own life when you're at the
Yes.
grocery store, being like, oh, anything in a packaged jar, box, bag, it's most likely in there. Why? So it lasts a long time for
Mm,
that shelf stable shelf life. Right. And so most likely it's not going to be high quality or real food in those things, because it's why it's on the shelf. Because if I were to put my meat on a shelf, it would rot. If I were to put my carrots on the shelf, what would happen? It would rot. It would start dying. And so it's that concept of like eating the food that's alive as well. The things that rot, it's a good indicator that that's probably real food. It's biodegradable, right? That's why it's like
yes.
that. And so even just having that kind of simple level of awareness, it
Mm,
really does change the way people navigate the grocery store. You'll realize
mm,
most things are like
mm.
90% poison in there. And I had this conversation with a farmer actually, and he totally changed the way I approach the grocery store, because he was explaining to me, he was like, have you ever noticed that when you go into the grocery store, all the farmers, right, or all the real food is on the outside of the store, and then on the inside, all the aisles are all the fake food. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. Because what's on the outside of the store, maybe literally outside, it's the watermelons, it's the melons, it's the things that stay nice, it's the
Mm,
herbs. And then on the outside, on the inside of the building, right, on the perimeter, is the coolers, is the veggies, is the drop,
mm.
is all the stuff that keeps everything cold.
Yeah.
And so even just that little thing
Mm,
really does
mm.
change the way people start
Absolutely.
to see the food
Yeah.
world.
Totally. And I think we have the same in the UK here with our supermarkets because, you go in and the first thing you'll see is the fruit and vegetable aisle, the fresh meat aisle. And as you rightly say, the more you get towards the center of the store, that's when you're going to find the grey fake foods. The
Totally.
foods where if you turn the packet over, it's just a list of names, words that I couldn't even pronounce because they just sound so chemically and a world away from a pack of chicken thighs or
Absolutely.
some sticks of celery or something like that. So we are talking about completely different foods, but I think probably what confuses people, I think, is when they are picking up a ready meal. It looks like it's all fresh. That's the thing, isn't it? Although it's in a packet, it still looks like it's fresh, but it's actually not really. It's still been overly processed.
Absolutely. I love the way my friend Zane, the one I mentioned just a second ago, the health expert, he was like, you need to eat single ingredient foods. And I
Mm,
was like, what do you mean by that?
mm,
And he was like, a banana is just a banana, right? There's not a lot of extra ingredients. And so, a steak is just beef, right? It's one
mm.
ingredient. And so
Yes.
even those ready-made meals, sure, it might be a you know, piece of meat or like a frozen vegetable or something in there. But when you actually look at the ingredients, just like what you
Mm,
said, there's tons more stuff added to it. It's not just a patty, it's not just asparagus in there, it's all kinds of chemicals added in there as well. And so I think one of the biggest scams in modern history is calories, people counting calories
mm.
instead of counting chemicals and counting the
Yes.
ingredients, because you could have these ready-made meals for so much cheaper and so much better for you if you just meal prepped and then put it in the freezer and brought it out when you were ready. And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
you're really not gaining much. I think that people will sacrifice their health on the altar of convenience. And
Mm,
so I think that if you can get okay with breaking up with convenience and finding new patterns and finding new habits, and not giving up the food. Like maybe you like that certain takeout, or like that certain frozen, but how can you make it at home? That's really taking health into your own hands, and you're going to make it 10
Mm,
times better anyways, because it's going to be living and active ingredients as well. It's not going to be frozen in that
absolutely.
shelf or warehouse for up to a year. Things shouldn't last that long anyways, and so just
Terrifying, yeah.
yeah, totally terrifying. It's like zombie food. It's like people are eating these
Yeah.
dead ingredients and wondering why they don't feel alive in their body.
Yeah, totally. No, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, I think that we have to get away from this idea that just because it says healthy on the front of the packet, it doesn't mean that it is actually healthy for us, and
Absolutely.
that we will be far better off making that piece of food from scratch. And as you say, being a bit more organized, doing a bit of food prepping over the weekend. You can have sauces ready made, you can make your own pizza dough. So come a Thursday night when you want to maybe have a pizza with the family or whatever it might be, you've got all the ingredients there that you can put together. And I know when our kids were young, before I decided to go low carb, but that's what we used to do. Sometimes we would have like a one night a week, a pizza night where we would make our own pizza bases, and it's really easy to do. It just takes being a little bit organized. But I've come to realize that I think part of the problem with today's poor health is, well, first of all, the fact that we've handed over our health to doctors and to, medical people, almost as if, well, they're going to take care of that. So it's not something that I need to bother with now. But it's almost that has led into the fact that our relationship with food is completely almost broken. I will say that it's actually broken for an awful lot of people because, I think a lot of the young people growing up now have known nothing else but eating ultra processed food. Pizza and chips a couple of nights a week, fish fingers and chips or whatever
Yeah.
whatever it might be. But we've handed our health over to doctors, and we've also our relationship with food is entirely broken. And so, what do you think might be like maybe a really good just starting point of a really good basic recipe that somebody could make? Maybe they've only ever been used to, um, buying ultra processed food, but they want to put a toe in the water. They want to start, maybe making real food. Where is a good place to start?
Oh, yeah. Great question. Okay. So I would really start with whatever your favorite food is. Like, I think that you're right. Take your power back a little bit with
Yeah.
food, take that relationship back and make something you like. I think that people punish themselves for some reason. Like they just like make the most boring, horrible food when they're at home. And it's like, of course you don't want to cook at home. This food is gross. Like, of course you don't want to get healthy. This is not flavorful. You know what I mean? And so there's two things I would say. One, I would make your own food, make your favorite meal, right? Prove to yourself that not only you can do it, but make it 10 times better as well. My husband and I, we like royalty. Like we like kings and queens in our house. We have our favorite meals. Like we have such good food and no one ever sees it, right? Like, well, now they do because I post stuff online, but you know what I mean? It's like we treat ourselves and we eat the way we want to, not just because we have health goals and we care about it, but we actually enjoy it. And so one of the greatest things you can do for yourself is learning how to make your own favorite foods. It's not just fun, but you're gonna just fall in love with it and realize exactly how easy these things are. Because I think that when you learn the basics, like when you start to even get good at one recipe that you like, you realize, oh, I could do it like this, or I could do it like this. This is how I could apply it for this idea. And so you really unlock a part of your brain when you do cook like that. And so I know that some people might just be like, I just don't know what to do at all, then make something simple like a burger patty. I love just plain burger patties without a bun. I'm sure you've done that 1,000 times being keto. And so just learning that, I think that just grilling up a really great patty, not just is it the easiest thing ever. You can do it on a grill if you have a grill outside, or you could do it on your oven, like on your stove top. You could even put it in the oven if you had to. And so really easy to make, very, very hard to mess up, and very nutrient dense, high protein. Beef is a superfood. And so eating
Absolutely.
more of that.
Yeah.
And then having like a nice sweet potato on the side. I love making diced sweet potatoes. And then even just putting it in the oven or the microwave, making it like a kind of cut mash type deal. That is seriously the easiest meal ever. You cannot mess it up. It's absolutely bulletproof. And having some kind of, even if it's not a starchy carb or something like that, some kind of, fruit or veg on the side, you'll be so surprised how much you enjoy it. And you'll never have that last minute kind of like, oh my gosh, what are we going to make for dinner tonight? If you know how to make those hamburger patties so quick.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so we always have
And you can, sorry, go on. No, sorry, go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say we
No,
always
no.
have an emergency little like ground beef in our fridge, just so we can cook up the
Mm.
patties just really fast whenever we need it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. And I think beef burgers, or burger patties as you call them, is something that you can make earlier on. You can store them in the fridge for a couple of hours before you then go and cook them. So they are just so easy to make. And I do think that mincemeat, it's so versatile as well, isn't it? I think that you've chosen the perfect meal there really, because I think
Totally.
mincemeat is incredibly versatile and it's so healthy. And just touching on that just for a second, I mean, I know in an ideal world, it would be great if everybody could get their meat from farmers markets, but if that is just sort of out of people's price range, are they still okay with getting mincemeat from a supermarket?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
absolutely think so. I think the lowest quality beef in your grocery store is still going to be more healthy, more bioavailable, nutrients, and better for
Yeah.
you than anything in a package, a box, a bag, or anything in that center part of the grocery store. And so
Yes.
the lowest quality is still going to be better than all of that. And so I wouldn't get too wrapped up on quality right when you get started. I didn't anyway. I think that would have been a big stumbling block for me. And so buying what you can, getting what you can. I actually live in Texas, and you'd be surprised. Where I'm at, anyways, I actually don't have a fresh beef source. I don't have a farmer's market where we're at. There's tons and tons of beef, obviously, in Texas, and so I can get stuff in and shipped and stuff like that. But we don't have a local
Wow.
source like that. And
Mm.
so I really got healthy by just getting what I could and getting my hands on what I could at the grocery store. And
Wow.
the most people now have a grass-fed option. And so even if it's a low quality grass-fed option, again, it's still going to be so much better for you. If there's one thing that I would avoid though, is seed oils. And I know we're going to get into
Yeah,
that
we
in
are.
just a second, but
Yeah.
that would be my greatest tip for anybody, is get whatever meat you can get your hands on. Don't worry about the quality yet. Fresh meat specifically, if you can. I do think that there's a better, not just is it going to taste better in your food and like getting it fresh. I just think that there's more nutrients in non-frozen
Mm,
food,
mm,
or non-frozen meat, I mean. And so I wouldn't get frozen chicken breast if you don't have to. If you can get
mm.
that fresh thigh or the fresh whatever, I think it's going to be just a little bit better, and it's going to totally make your dishes better.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so prioritizing that animal protein and then decreasing those seed oils,
yeah,
those are the things that move the needle the most in my
yeah,
own life.
yeah.
I lost 30 pounds by just doing that alone.
Wow.
And so it just shows how much your body stores that fake food. Cause I wasn't even
Yes.
trying to lose weight. Like I wasn't even on this crazy mission of like dropping the scale or anything like that. It was happening naturally by actually adding real nutrition to my body. In such a obvious way. It was just like detoxing all the stuff that fake stuff that stored up over the years.
Yeah, totally, totally. And yeah, we'll touch on that in just a second, your own health journey in just a moment. But just going back to something that you were talking about there, and just to qualify this particular area that we're talking about with to the people who are watching this, is that there is a difference between buying some fresh mince and making your own burger and a ready-made burger that you're buying from a supermarket that comes in its own bun, because whilst it might look exactly the same, the dangers that are in there are quite it's really a lot more dangerous for your body, because it is going to contain the those seed oils that you were talking about, which know we'll get into in a minute, are incredibly dangerous. And also it is just processed, so really not to be fooled by the fact that you think you might be saving yourself 10 or 15 minutes by buying this burger in a bun that's all ready just to go into the microwave, because it looks exactly like what you're about to make with this fresh mince, but the two are in fact completely different, aren't they?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. You wanna know what you're putting in your mouth. I mean,
Yes.
I think that that simple survival instinct has been, like, erased from the human conscious, and so just being informed just to that level, knowing that just because it looks like something doesn't
Yeah.
mean it is something, right? Like,
Mm-mm.
I could make a burger out of Laffy Taffy and paint it and trick you into thinking it's a real burger, but obviously it wouldn't be the same, and obviously that's a silly analogy.
Yeah.
But the point remains the same. Just because it looks like something doesn't mean it
Yeah.
is
Doesn't mean
something.
to
And
say
the
that
best
it
way
is.
to know what it is to actually make it yourself.
Make it yourself, yes. So now I want to hear about your own journey to finding your way to better health, and how you found your own body reacted to eating real food. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So, we went on our own, health journey. We really just went all in on just what works for us. We wanted to educate ourselves. We wanted to do what we can to take our health back into our own hands. And so we tried paleo, we tried keto, we tried animal based, we've done carnivore. We've gone through all of the paths that everyone does. And
Mm,
eventually, you just find what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And so being okay with that is really scary for some people because you're kind of testing on yourself and it can go wrong. You might have a bad reaction. My husband had a bad reaction to the carnivore diet. He needs more carbs. It does a lot better with even just like half an avocado in there somewhere. He's way better. And so you have to figure out what works for you. And so being willing to go on that journey can be scary, but it's so worth it because really what worked best for us is an animal-based diet. Do you know anything about that?
yeah,
Okay, perfect. So that's
yes.
primarily what we do. You'll notice in our cookbook, we have rice in there and we have, like other kinds of carbs and stuff like that. And so those are our really fun recipes that I think anybody could latch on to. But if you're actually, at our house, we're mostly eating animal-based proteins, fruits, a little bit of veggies, not many, really like sweet potatoes and yeah, just very few veggies here and there. Honey's on that list, of course. Yogurts, raw meats, milks, all of these things come from a cow, right? They're qualified as real food. And so when I started to just prioritize real food and eliminate seed oils, honestly, a lot of interesting things happen that wasn't just about weight loss. So weight loss was obviously a big thing. That's what everybody wants. At some point,
Mm,
I feel
mm,
like everyone has that like, how do you lose weight journey? But I wasn't even there. I wasn't like, I'm going to shred some pounds. I obviously had 30 pounds to lose since it happened. But that wasn't my priority. We really were trying to see what it means to have optimal health because our friend Zane, he has his brand is called Healthy AF, Healthy After 50. And so it was such a big impact on us because he's 53. And at the time we were working together, really, really heavily was when I was in my mid 20s. And so I was seeing how he made all these choices. And now he is literally like the healthiest 50 something year old. I know, I'm serious. Like he not just has like the blood work to back it up, but his whole family is beautiful and healthy. His wife's beautiful and
Oh.
healthy. Like they're just so amazing. Like they walk it like they talk it, right? Like they're so exactly who they are. And so I remember it being so inspiring to see how making decisions in the moment can set me up for health in my older years, right? And so I would be focusing like, what does, what would I want to eat? Or like, what should I eat now to get me where I want to be when I'm 60? This is what I was thinking about in my mid 20s, right? And so having that long term perspective really didn't just change the way that I started eating, but it made me be more intentional in a lot of other ways as well. Just having that long term vision and having, kind of that legacy mindset of like, what do I want to be? What do I want to actually like be in the world? Because when you're eating fake food or when you're not intentional about what's going in your mouth, like you're just in this consumeristic like lower thought pattern, I think. But when you're trying to better yourself and be healthy and be the best version of yourself, you just interact with the world differently. And so it really changed the way I did business. I am a way better entrepreneur. I'm a way better wife, way better friend, just because of not just the food journey, but just who we've become in the process, and trying to add value to ourselves and put ourselves, in a healthy state. Because I mean, America is so unhealthy in so many ways. Like everybody dies from cancer. It's crazy. Like everyone's just so overloaded with toxicity and overloaded with inflammation. It's like, it's not a mystery that this is happening. It's because of what we're doing and our habits and our lifestyle. And so I didn't want to be like everybody else. I don't want to have the mediocre American lifestyle. I don't want to have the mediocre UK lifestyle either. Like I
Mm.
want to have actual health. And so it totally changed the way holistically that I show up. And then I also, this is a practical example as well. I stopped sunburning. I used to get bad sunburns. Like I would go outside for 20 minutes and like my cheeks would be rosy, my little arms would be rosy, forehead totally gone. Like I was just like totally red. Like I would burn bad. And so when I started eating real food, I would stop burning. I can go outside. Literally, I was outside for 4 hours the other day and did not one piece of me burnt at all. And so that really spoke a lot of volumes to me of how that old saying, your mom's always right somehow. It's like you are what you eat. It's like that's not a old funny saying, that's reality. And so
Yeah.
my skin was made of all of this food that would burn, right? And so my skin was literally overloaded with toxins and it would react to the sun, just like if you put oil in a pan, right? And you start cooking something, that oil heats up and burns. And
Yeah.
so that's what was happening. All that junk and those fake ingredients were in my skin. And so
Mm.
I haven't sunburned in years. Um, I sleep way better. And I've always been a good sleeper. I can sleep anywhere. Like if you and me took a bus ride somewhere, like you probably wouldn't hear it from me. I'd be asleep the whole time. Like no
Yeah.
problem sleeping my whole life. And I sleep way better than I ever have. Um, Gosh, there's just so many different things from
Yeah.
skin to business, just being intentional and being like, I want I want to bring myself back to life in a way. And I didn't even have a diagnosis or I didn't have a health scare. Thank God.
Mm.
I didn't have an SOS moment
Mm.
that made me have to rewrite everything. So being able to choose that for yourself, get out of the consumeristic mindset and realize that our governments are not our friends and they
Mm,
don't want ours to be ultimately healthy because why would they? They don't care about us.
mm,
Only you are going to care about you in the way that you're going to care about you. Only you can make those
absolutely.
choices. Only you can, go to the grocery store. Only you can make
Mm,
these decisions and pick up that fork every day. And so
yeah.
not delegating those thoughts to the government or to the food regulators or to the local grocer that packs the store with a bunch of items, that's not their job. That's your job. And so just taking that power back ultimately, I think is the biggest thing that I would say.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that everybody needs to be on their own journey to finding optimal health. And I love to hear when people have tried different ways of eating and then found the right way for them. Because I wish that more people could do that. I love low carb and keto, but I'm very much on the higher protein side of things. And that's what's worked for me for years. I sort of dip in and out of carnivore. I maybe do carnivore for a few months and then I'm out of it. And then, I'm back on my keto and my low carb stuff. It just fits in better with family life, really.
Mhm.
But we're all very, very much protein focused here, and it's weird because I agree with you about the sunburn as well. I mean, I have not sunburnt in years, absolutely years, and I don't wear sunscreen anymore. I
Me
don't,
either.
I don't need to. I just don't burn. It is the strangest thing. But by changing the foods that I was eating, by getting rid of all the fake foods, of all the seed oils, which we're just about to talk about, it's as if your body reacts completely differently to just Mother Nature, really. And all the brain fog lifts, doesn't it? And you do feel like a completely different person. And it's incredible to think that just changing what you're eating can make you feel so, so much better. No, wonderful. So let's have a chat now about seed oils because I think maybe some people know about seed oils, but maybe a lot of people it hasn't quite filtered down yet about the dangers of seed oils. So let's just talk about. I would like you to talk about, what are seed oils? Let's just start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am not a doctor, but there is a
No.
ton of research out on this topic. Again, shout out to Zane Griggs, tons of great stuff. And then Dr. Kate Shanahan as well. She's
Excellent.
really pioneering the seed oil research, and she has some books, and she's even coming out with a book specifically all about seed oils later this year. And so definitely look into this topic and start to educate yourself because I think that this is one of the most under talked about things in the health space right now because these oils I want to get into what they are and then the dangers of them, but why they matter so much and why we're kind of going to camp on this subject for a second, and I hope everyone keeps listening, is because they're in everything. They are so pervasive, and most people have no idea that they're even eating it. And this is one of the reasons I believe that people aren't seeing the healing they need. They aren't getting the results they want at the
Mm.
end of the day, is because these oils are hiding in even the healthy, quote unquote, packaged items and even the healthy, even some meats at the store. And so seed oils, there's a big list, but go ahead.
Yeah. So sorry, let me just interrupt you there because one of the ones you're going to mention is an oil called canola, Canola. And in the UK, we call that rapeseed. And it is literally in everything. But I just want all the people watching this to know that when you're talking about that particular oil, what we're referring to in the UK is known as rapeseed. Anyway, go
Yeah,
on.
definitely. That and vegetable oil and soybean oil and
Mm.
Crisco. Do you guys have Crisco?
No, we don't know. I
Oh,
don't think I've
okay.
seen
Okay.
Crisco.
That's just for the Americans. Then
Yeah.
Crisco, that's all the same oil as well. And so all the different names that we just mentioned are actually the same oil. And so essentially what it is they take a bunch of seeds, whether that be corn seeds or soybean seeds or just all these different types of seeds, right? If you envision thousands and thousands of corn
Mm,
seeds, they make oil from that. And so you might think like, oh, that doesn't sound that bad. Like it sounds like just a cheaper version of oil, right? But what happens in the process and what occurs in the oil is really what makes it so dangerous. And so specifically, it's the omega-6 content.
mm,
And this type of omega-6 content, the linoleic acid specifically, it is a naturally occurring thing. There's small amounts of omega-6 and these linoleic acids in all animal protein and in a couple of other natural and real food sources. But I'm talking in like the 1 to single digit percentile, right?
mm.
And now people are consuming up to 20% or over a minimum of 20% of their calories every day are coming from these oils. The average American is ingesting a minimum of 5 tablespoons of these seed oils per day. And so this type of oil has never been consumed and never would be consumed in a natural setting. And so it would take you the same equivalent to eat 98 corn cobs in one sitting to get the same amount of that
I
oil
mean, you
that
just
you're.
wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't do it. It's
You
impossible
wouldn't do
and
it.
disgusting. If you came over with 98 corn cobs to my house, I'd be like, who are we having over? Like, this is so much. And so
Yeah.
it's impossible. It's an impossible scenario for a human to consume this much of these oils. And so, what makes them so dangerous, though, specifically, is the inflammation that it causes. It's some of the most rancid and inflammation causing substances that you can put in your mouth. It's absolutely horrible for you. It wreaks havoc on the body, damages your cells, and causes inflammation. And inflammation is the root of all disease and aging. And so, if you want to eliminate your chances for disease, if you want to slow down the aging process, or if you want to heal your body, if you're already in a diagnosis you want to get out of, that first step is reducing inflammation. And so these highly inflammatory processed oils are in everything. And so we can get into like a specific list of what they actually are. But if you turn over any sort of packaged ingredient, it's always one of the very, very first things in the ingredient list. And they put it in there for stabilization, they say, but it really is crazy when you look into the data because right when they started adding these oils to our food system, that is when obesity started to skyrocket. That's when lifestyle diseases started to skyrocket. And you can see when you look at specifically some of Kate Shanahan's research, and I can even give you the link to this so you can add it to the show notes for everybody. But you can see on the chart, if you can envision it, like the lines of butter and lard and all of these naturally occurring fats and oils. It's all very low. And then all of the diseases are very much the same thing, all very flatlined. And right when these rancid oils got into our food supply, all of those diseases started to go up at the exact same time. And so history speaks for itself. A lot of the diseases that we're seeing now, they weren't even a thing 50 to 100
Mm,
years ago, but neither was these
right.
ingredients,
Mm.
right? And so it is a little bit of 1 plus 1 equals 2. It's like this is the problem. And
Mm.
so we can stop there for a
Yeah,
second,
yeah.
but that's kind of the overview of seed oils and why they're dangerous.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think if you think about it, so say if I took some olives and I squeezed the olives, I would be able to get something out of those olives. But if I squeeze some, I don't know, some sunflowers, I mean, how hard would I have to press to get anything out of them?
And how
You know,
many?
So and exactly, you know, how many, and you know what has to be done, because the seed oils, they're bleached, and they've had all sorts of processing done to them, haven't they?
Absolutely.
So
Crisco, the brand that I mentioned earlier, Crisco oil, it's actually cottonseed oil. But what they used it for before they put it in a cooking line is it was engine lubricant. It's literally engine lubricant. It's what you use for cars. You can put it on planes to make the doors a little bit easier to open. Like that exact same oil, engine lubricant, that low of quality is exactly what they're putting in your food.
so it was never ever meant to be something that humans would have
Never.
eaten ever. No, no. So what are the best oils that we could cook with?
Absolutely. So I use lard,
Mm.
beef tallow, butter, clarified butter, ghee, all of the natural, real food sources. If you make bacon, save your bacon grease, right? Like your great grandma did. Those naturally occurring fats. If you also want something for like actual oil purposes, olive oil is on the safe list, and avocado oil is also on the safe list. You do
Mm.
have to get high quality of both of those though,
Yeah.
because if you don't get a good brand of olive oil and avocado oil specifically, most of them are cut with soybean oil, which is a
Yeah.
seed oil. And
Oh,
so if you flip over your oils, and especially if it comes in a plastic bottle, that's a good indicator. You'll flip it over and look at the ingredients, and it will say cut with some other oil.
mm,
So it'll bring down that quality. And so obviously make sure
oh,
you're getting the right ones. But if you can avoid even those two, then why not? Butter,
yeah,
clarified butter, ghee,
absolutely.
lard, those are better ones to search for anyway. And butter's gonna make it taste better. Anyways, so
Yeah,
you're in the
yeah,
right, you're
yeah.
in the right hands.
Absolutely, and that's what I say to people. I mean, you call it beef tallow, we call it beef dripping
Okay.
over in the UK. But you know, dripping or lard or ghee for us in our house is a favourite one. Butter,
I agree with you. I agree with you.
yes.
And something interesting about seed oils as well, so many people say, "Oh, I'm not even eating these." Like, when they
Yeah,
have a conversation, they're like, "Oh, I've never even heard of these. I don't eat these." And
yeah.
as I mentioned, in America, anyways, people are consuming a minimum of 5 tablespoons. That's
Mm,
a lot of oil. If we were to eat 5 tablespoons, we would be like, well, it would not be pleasant. It would be very gross
no,
if we were just to sit there
awful.
and eat. That's like a medicine or like punishment or something, right? And
Yeah.
so it is actually quite a lot of oil. But even more interestingly, there was a study done in 2008. And so I would say America's gotten way worse since '08 as far as health goes. And so this is even a 15-year-old study, but from the 50s until 2008, the linoleic acid content, the seed oil content, they started testing flesh, fatty tissue from people, and 22% of the average American's body fat is directly from seed oils. And so if you cut these oils out, you could literally lose 22% of your body fat because that's how
Wow.
much is being stored in the average American. And that was then, that was in '08. I was still in high school then.
Imagine what it's going to be now, though.
Imagine
It's
what it is
just, it's
now.
terrifying. But you know, I there was one particular day I was in the supermarket and I thought I'm just going to go down the like the salad cream, the mayonnaise aisle. I'm going to have a look to see what oils are in, and literally every single bottle I looked at, it was all rapeseed oil. Everything was rapeseed oil.
Absolutely. It's
So
terrifying.
yeah.
It's in everything. It's in like the hidden
Mm,
poison that's in
yeah.
absolutely everything. And another thing that's really interesting about seed oils is they stay in the body. Remember, that's there to help shelf life. That means
Mm.
that that shelf life continues within your body and within your cells. And so I really started getting serious in 2019 of cutting out seed oils. That's when we met Zane and he started teaching us all this stuff. But I didn't really see the benefit, I would say, in such a visceral way until about 2021, because on average, it has a half-life of 2 years in your body. And so
Wow.
when you find this information, it's like you gotta start immediately. And
Yeah.
even now, like I can tell, like if we go out to eat, or we're in a family scenario or like going to some kind of, something where seed oils are going to be present. It's so obvious to me now that we've been trying to avoid them for so long. Like when that inflammation sets in, like I automatically feel it. My stomach
Mm,
looks visibly different. Like
mm,
you can see the inflammation, you can see that puff, that tummy. And then just like it's just like everything comes down, that brain fog, the
mm,
energy.
mm.
It's very damaging to your mitochondria, like the
Yeah.
powerhouse of your cell. And so it doesn't just mess with the energy, it actually damages that cell. So
Mm,
it's not just going to make you tired when you eat it, it's going to keep making you tired as it sits in that shelf life in your body. And so after being away from it, for 2 years or so, I was like, okay, now I get it. And so if you want them totally out, I think that it's like 7 years or something like that for it to totally purge from your
yeah.
cells. And I find that motivating. And I'm like, that's great.
Mm,
There's an end in sight. We can avoid these. Like now we know. But
yes.
absolutely, if you can avoid one thing, it would be these list of oils, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, yeah. So Cassidy, this has been a absolutely fascinating discussion. Thank you so much for coming on, for talking to me, for sharing your past experiences, and just talking about real food and the dangers of seed oils. So where can people find you?
Absolutely. Well, I'll give you a link. I would love to offer two things to your audience. I definitely want to give everyone a copy of our cookbook and then a
Brilliant.
copy of our seed oil free shopping list. And so,
Fantastic.
I'm just as busy as you are, so I don't cook every single meal at home. It's my big goal, and I love cooking with real food, as you know by now. But there are times that we need quick meals, and so some of those pantry staples, some of those things you can even order online, know what better brands are, because there are
Mm,
some brands that are coming on the scene now more than ever. It's so much easier to live a seed oil free lifestyle now than when I started. And so knowing what brands you can get simple seed oil free swaps, I have a list of 60 plus items that you can
brilliant.
grab
Thank you
that are going to
so
be.
much.
Yeah, so I'd love to give you guys that. We'll
Yeah,
add that to
thank
the
you.
show notes. And
Yeah.
so that's just a little link that you can go to, but you could check out my podcast. Is just called Cook with Real Food. You'll see my face. And so that would be the best place. And then I would love to give that to you guys for free.
Thank you.
So you'll have that probably in the show notes. So you guys can go check that out now.
That is brilliant. Thank you so much, Cassidy. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed talking to you. We have so much in common. It's just been fantastic chatting with you about the things that we find that we both feel so passionate about. So
Absolutely.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you
So
so much for your time.
yeah, thank you. Take care and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now. Bye. Bye.